The Father Gill sighting, UFO occupants wave back in Papua New Guinea, a missionary, and 37 witnesses watch beings on a UFO wave back at them. And one researcher calls it the most credible case he's ever seen. Long before the age of viral videos and smartphone footage, before the internet transformed every strange light in the sky into a global phenomenon, a soft-spoken Anglican missionary in a remote corner of Papua New Guinea picks up his pen and begins to write. The date is June 26, 1959. The location is Guinea, a mission station accessible only by difficult travel through dense tropical terrain. Reverend William Booth Gill has no particular interest in unidentified flying objects. He has not read the popular UFO literature of the era. He is not a sensationalist. He is a trained observer, a disciplined record keeper, a man whose profession demands precision and honesty. And on this humid evening, as the sun sets over the Papuan coast, he becomes a witness to something that no amount of training or discipline can adequately prepare him for. The craft appears in the sky above the mission station. It hovers. Gill watches it with growing fascination. It is large, circular, disc-shaped with a flat base and a wide superstructure rising from its center. 4 vertical legs extend downward from its underside. A shaft of blue light projects upward from the craft into the darkening sky. The object is not distant. It is not a pinpoint of light that could be dismissed as Venus or a satellite or an aircraft at altitude. It is close enough that Gill can observe details with his naked eye. Close enough that when he looks more carefully at the upper deck of the craft, he sees something that transforms this sighting from merely unusual to historically unprecedented. There are figures on the craft, 4 humanoid shapes moving about on the upper surface. They appear to be working, performing tasks, moving with purpose. Gill stares. Around him, members of the mission community gather. Papua New Guinean staff and residents join him in observing the craft. They see it too. They see the figures. The count of witnesses grows. 37 people stand together in the tropical night, watching a disc-shaped craft hover above their mission station with occupants visible on its deck. Then Gill does something that will elevate this case into the most important interactive UAP encounter in documented history. He waves, a simple gesture, an instinctive human response to seeing figures in the distance. He raises his hand and waves at the craft, and one of the figures waves back. The motion is clear, deliberate, responsive. Gill waves again, the figure waves again. Emboldened, Gill raises both arms above his head. One of the figures on the craft raises both arms above its head in apparent mimicry of the gesture. The exchange continues. Ground observers wave. Craft occupants wave back. The interaction is witnessed by dozens of people. And throughout it all, Gill is writing. He is documenting the time, the appearance of the craft, the number of figures, the gestures exchanged. His notes are contemporaneous, begun during the observation itself, not reconstructed from memory hours or days later. This is the disciplined recording of a trained missionary, a man accustomed to keeping accurate records, writing as the events unfold before him. The craft hovers for an extended period. The figures remain visible. The gesturing continues. Then gradually, the craft begins to ascend. It rises into the night sky, the blue shaft of light still projecting upward, the disk growing smaller as it gains altitude. Finally, it departs. The witnesses disperse. Gill returns to his quarters and completes his written notes. The record is preserved. The first night's observation is documented in ink, in real time, by a credible witness with 36 corroborating observers. The next evening, June 27, the craft returns. Gill and additional witnesses gather as the object appears again in the sky above Guinea. The sighting lasts for another extended period. The craft hovers at close range. The figures are visible again on the upper deck. The observation mirrors the previous night's encounter. Gill continues his written record, adding notes about the second appearance. The craft eventually ascends and departs as it did the night before. After this second night, it does not return. The mission station returns to its ordinary rhythms, but Gill's notes remain. The The testimony of 37 witnesses remains. The record of what happened over Boyanai on those 2 June nights in 1959 is preserved. Gill submits his written account through Anglican church channels. The notes eventually reach researchers investigating unidentified aerial phenomena. The case comes to the attention of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer serving as scientific consultant to the United States Air Force's Project Blue Book. Hynek, a man who has spent years reviewing UAP reports, who has developed a reputation for skepticism and scientific rigor, who has dismissed countless cases as misidentifications or hoaxes, travels to interview Gill personally. He examines the original contemporaneous notes. He speaks with the missionary at length, and he reaches a conclusion that he will maintain for the rest of his career. Reverend William Booth Gill is the most credible witness Hynek has ever personally interviewed in his decades of UAP investigation. The Father Gill sighting is one of the most important cases in the entire Blue Book archive. What makes Gill so credible in Hynek's assessment is precisely what makes him an unlikely UFO witness. He is educated but not given to flights of fancy. He is observant but not predisposed to see what he expects to see. He has no prior interest in unidentified flying objects. He has no apparent motivation to fabricate. He gains nothing from reporting what he observed except the inconvenience of becoming associated with a controversial phenomenon. His profession demands honesty. His training emphasizes accurate record keeping, and most critically, his written notes are contemporaneous. They are not retrospective accounts colored by memory's distortions or influenced by later reading or discussion. They are observations recorded in real time, during and immediately after the events themselves. The corroboration provided by 37 additional witnesses makes collective misidentification implausible. A single observer might mistake Venus for a craft. A single observer might experience an optical illusion or a perceptual anomaly. But 37 people, standing together, observing the same object for extended periods over 2 consecutive nights, seeing the same details, witnessing the same interactive gesturing, strains any conventional explanation. The Papua New Guinean witnesses are not trained in Western scientific observation, but their testimony aligns with Gill's account. They see what he sees. They confirm the craft's appearance, the figures on its deck, the exchange of waves. The gestural exchange itself remains the single most significant aspect of the Boyanai encounter. In the entire documented history of UAP investigation, no other case presents such clear, specific, witnessed evidence of apparent intentional communication between craft occupants and human observers. The figures on the craft do not merely move about their tasks oblivious to the watchers below. They respond. When Gill waves, they wave back. When he raises both arms, one of them raises both arms. The behavior suggests awareness. It suggests recognition of the human presence. It suggests, if taken at face value, that the occupants of the craft are engaging in deliberate interaction with the mission community below. Researchers examining the case have noted that the craft's return on the second night could itself be interpreted as responsive behavior. Having engaged in gestural communication on June 26, the craft or its occupants return on June 27. The pattern suggests intention. It suggests that the first night's interaction may have prompted the second night's appearance. Why the craft does not return a third time remains unknown. But the 2 consecutive nights of observation, each documented by Gill's contemporaneous notes, each witnessed by dozens of people, create a pattern that resists dismissal. The Boyanai encounters are notable for what does not happen as much as for what does. There is no threat, there is no aggression, there is no close approach that might have been perceived as menacing. Gill's account describes curiosity rather than fear. The witnesses are intrigued, fascinated, engaged in observation rather than fleeing in terror. The craft's occupants, if the gesturing is correctly interpreted, seem equally curious and non-threatening. The exchange of waves is playful, almost friendly. There is no abduction attempt. No physical evidence is left behind. No witness reports illness or injury. The encounter is benign, characterized by mutual observation and simple gestural communication across the distance between ground and hovering craft. When the craft departs after the second night and does not return, the mission station is left with only the written record and the memories of 37 witnesses. No physical trace remains. No landing marks are found. No material evidence can be collected. Investigators who later visit the Guinea site find nothing but the testimony and the notes. In the absence of physical evidence, the case rests entirely on witness credibility and the quality of the documentation. And by those standards, the Father Gill sighting stands virtually alone in the annals of UAP investigation. Hynek's institutional endorsement carries weight precisely because of his position. As the scientific consultant to Project Blue Book, he is not an outsider or a believer predisposed to accept extraordinary claims. He is the Air Force's own scientific advisor, a trained astronomer, a man whose professional reputation depends on maintaining scientific rigor. When Hynek declares Gill the most credible witness he has personally interviewed, when he characterizes the Guinea case as one of the most important in the Blue Book files, that assessment comes from inside the establishment, not from the fringe. It is an endorsement that researchers and skeptics alike must reckon with. The Father Gill sighting has been examined and re-examined by multiple researchers in the decades since 1959. Virtually everyone who studies the case in detail reaches the same conclusion. The witnesses are credible, the documentation is exceptional, the corroboration is extensive. The conventional explanations fail to account for the specifics of the observation. Venus cannot wave back. An aircraft cannot hover motionless for extended periods with visible figures on its upper surface. A hoax involving 37 witnesses and a meticulous contemporaneous written record by a missionary with no motive to deceive strains plausibility beyond the breaking point. What remains, after all skeptical analysis is exhausted, is the irreducible strangeness of what happened over Guinea on those 2 June nights. A craft hovering low enough to observe in detail, figures visible on its upper deck, gestures exchanged between human observers and craft occupants, waves returned, arms raised in apparent mimicry, 37 witnesses, a contemporaneous written record, an endorsement from the Air Force's own scientific consultant. The most credible interactive UAP encounter in documented history, preserved in ink and testimony, resistant to conventional explanation, standing as testimony to the possibility that we are not alone and that contact, when it comes, might be as simple and profound as a wave returned across the darkness. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.